Hello, thank you for joining us at the start of week 2 of the SRNA virtual conference. I would like to open today's session by acknowledging the members, partners, and members of the public that are joining us today on Treaty 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 territories and the homeland of the Métis. I acknowledge the strength, resilience, and capacity of all First Nations people and remind us that we are all treaty people. My name is Leah Thorpe, registered nurse, and I'm your council member at large for Region 5. I'm pleased to be joined by Moni Snell, registered nurse, nurse practitioner, and council member at large for nursing practice area, advanced practice nursing, or indirect nursing care, to welcome you to this session and provide you some valuable information as we move ahead. Before we start, we'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Miller Thomson, for their ongoing support. Their financial contribution made it possible to bring this virtual conference to our members, the public, and our partners completely free. Thank you.
So last week, we had a chance to learn from those who have gone before us. Catherine Stanfield from the College of Nurses of Manitoba, Mary Smith from the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba, and Sue Smith from the Nova Scotia College of Nursing participated in a panel discussion with Council President Warren Cook, where they reflected on their experiences moving from a dual mandate registered nursing organization to an independent association and a separate regulatory body. Then over the next 3 days, we took a deeper dive into each registered nursing pillar: union, association, and regulator. Starting with Tracy Zambori, RN and President of the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses, then Mary Smith, RN and Executive Director of the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba. They shared their experiences moving to a separate association in that province. And finally, Deanna Williams of the Dundee Consulting Group shared the role of the regulator and her experience working with health regulators across Canada and around the world. All of these sessions provided the necessary information and important perspectives to launch the second week of sessions.
Today and the rest of this week, we ask that you put your voice into action. During these interactive sessions, participants will have the opportunity to contribute towards the next steps in creating an independent association. This year's Revolving Conversations will be led by nurse leader champions who will help to facilitate discussions focused on the creation of an independent association. Our first session today will focus on the governance structure that would support a successful association for registered nurses in Saskatchewan. Our champion today, Maureen Klink, registered nurse, will present the rules of engagement for this session and how we will facilitate this virtual discussion.
So at this time, thank you for joining us today. We are proud to introduce Maureen Klink to take the floor and lead this revolving conversation.
Good morning, everyone. I guess it's afternoon. My name is Maureen Klink. I am a nurse practitioner. And I also would like to acknowledge that the members and partners and members of the public that are joining us today are on Treaty 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, and the homeland of the Métis. And I acknowledge the strength, resilience, and capacity of all First Nations people and remind us that we're all treaty people. I am very fortunate as a nurse practitioner because I can actually say that I was the first nurse practitioner to be registered in Saskatchewan, something that I'm very proud of. My nursing experience does extend right from acute care to a community primary care to remote to rural to urban. I've practiced in various jurisdictions in Canada, and I was also fortunate enough to be a part of a team of like-minded nurse practitioners in the province who launched the first advocacy nonprofit organization called the Saskatchewan Association of Nurse Practitioners. Therefore, I have direct experience with designing a governance structure for an association, and I will be the nurse leader championing for today's session. Today is the start of week 2 of the SRNA virtual conference, and we are excited to begin discussions of some of the key considerations as we move forward in creating an independent association for registered nursing in Saskatchewan. We're pleased to have you join us this week as we open the floor to conversation. We all absorbed a lot of information last week, and we know there are questions, thoughts, potential concerns, ideas, and opinions that those in attendance may have regarding this transition. We want all registered nurses in Saskatchewan to have an opportunity to share their voice in conversations pertaining to the creation of an independent association. As with all other sessions throughout the conference, these sessions will also be shared later for viewing. In addition, some of the key discussion points will be posted on the dedicated conference Facebook page, Voices in Action, for further discussion with those who are unable to attend. If you haven't yet joined this group, I encourage you to do so. The information has been provided to you in the conference emails you have received. In addition, an SRNA staff member will be capturing the conversation, so those involved in the new association will have all your comments and opinions as a starting point. Today's session will focus on the governance structure that would support a successful association for registered nursing in Saskatchewan. Each board is unique, with its own culture and expectations of board members. And as we create our own association, we're fortunate to be able to collectively decide the best approach to governance. We have the opportunity to think about what will work best for our members, our goals, and the nursing profession of Saskatchewan. Some options to consider while we have this discussion is the setup of our board. Should it be volunteer? Should it be a board that provides operations? So in other words, actively doing some of the work that a board needs to do, membership collection, fee collection, those kinds of things. Or should we be a board that hires someone else to do the work, such as the case with the Saskatchewan Association of Nurse Practitioners, which has a volunteer board and a part-time administrative person. Furthermore, last week, Mary Smith from the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba shared their experience separating from the regulatory body and creating a new association. They started out as a volunteer board with an appointed interim leader who then hired an ED and combined different governance structures to best suit their needs. Good governance is crucial to success. So let's dive in. The question, I'll read it as we're waiting. The question is, what are the key components / features of a governance structure for an association in Saskatchewan? And I open the floor, and I'm going to get my gallery view going as well here.
Okay, so Maureen, we do have a question while maybe we're sorting out some of these issues.
Okay.
It says, I like the approach that Manitoba took. Maureen, can you share your experience with SANP and developing a governance structure?
I'd like to sort of say as well, right from the get-go, we're very fortunate that the Saskatchewan Registered Nurses Association is supporting this type of discussion. Having a thoughtful approach is a huge advantage. I will say that the Saskatchewan Association of Nurse Practitioners, there was a few of us around my dining room table, and we kind of fell into a lot of things, and some of the decisions that we had to make were things like a nonprofit organization. Did we want to incorporate and become an official nonprofit organization? We felt that was important, predominantly because we then have board liability protection. So the board does have some protection if there is some liability issues that occur. So that was important to us. So we decided we did want to move forward with a nonprofit organization, which then once you decide that does guide some of your decision making. You do have rules that need to be followed in relation to the development of a nonprofit organization in Saskatchewan. The other item member that really helped us form was our fee structure, and that is something that you have to be realistic about. You can say that you want to have a board that has an executive director, but if you can't pay that executive director, then you really can't have that component. So that's part of your thought in relation to governance as well. It was decided that we started actually with a voluntary board where everyone took a share of the operations. We had a membership individual, we had a finance person, we had a secretary, we had all those components. And then we realized that we needed to also be sustainable. And so people were getting tired, like the board members were getting tired of doing all the work, working full-time jobs, attending meetings, all those things. And so we decided to go with a part-time administration individual. We would have loved to have had, an executive director, but, finances also dictate the composition of what your governance structure can be. I think, it has moved the Saskatchewan. I'm no longer a part of this. Well, I'm a member, of course, but I'm no longer a part of the board. And I believe the board is functioning very well, it's a volunteer board with a part-time administrative assistant. And finances are always a struggle, when you have a voluntary membership in relation to your organization. So, anybody else have any thoughts or questions in relation to some organizations that they've been a part of, and some ideas about governance?
Hi, Maureen, it's Terry.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just wondering how big, you said that you started with a volunteer board. How big was that board to start with?
6 people. Yeah, it was 6 people. And we, I was the president, and we had, obviously we didn't have a past president, but, but we did have, a structure. And as quickly as we could, we also added students onto our board, so initially it was, just the main, we had to have finance, we had to have secretary, we had to have, a president, we had membership. It was a slimmed board. Like I said, that at the time, and I think this has changed, but at the time, the nonprofit organization did mandate certain board positions that had to be in place. The other thing that they mandated at the time was that if you had Saskatchewan in your title, you also had to have representation around the province of your board members. So that was the other thing that we had to reach out, and we had to make sure that, some of the addresses, the mailing addresses on the board structure were from around the province, not just Regina. Otherwise, you could not call yourself Saskatchewan.
So Maureen,
Yes?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, Jenna Lee has a question, or she said that she can speak on behalf of SANP to give some insight if you would like.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Jenna Lee. Nice to see you.
Hi, Maureen, and thank you so much for leading this session to give some insight onto how SANP was created. I am currently the president-elect of the SANP and will be going into the president position as of November, when we have our AGM that was moved due to COVID. So I have a little bit of insight onto how the SANP governs, as well as some of the issues we are facing as an association. Obviously, we're very invested in these conversations and this work, and have some discussions as part of the SANP that we need to have going forward, and where we see us within this work. For those that are not familiar, the SANP just celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year. So we do have some experience in doing this work. Even though our membership has remained quite small, we still are a nonprofit organization. We have a past president, and president-elect. So it is a 3-year term when you are voted into the president-elect position. And we do believe that's important so that there is some consistency within that leadership role. It is all still volunteer-based. We have positions on the association board for students, grad nurse practitioners, as well as specialty nurse practitioner roles, and for certain areas of the province as well. So those have all been important. I'll say that we do still have that part-time hired position, who is not a nurse practitioner, but she does support our work very well with kind of organizing incoming issues, creating our board agenda, responding to our email account, just kind of organizes us, and definitely something that I think is still needed and valued. Some of the issues we're facing as an association is recruiting members would probably be our biggest challenge. There are 300 nurse practitioners registered within the province now, and we have anywhere from, I think, roughly maybe 40 to 50 members. So not a large percentage of the registered NPs. And we're really struggling to find some value in membership and how we're going to increase more members. Obviously, that is through some of the work that we do to hope that we entice, that people see value in our work. But unfortunately, it has not been enough. And there has been some talk at our last AGM about how having a hired executive director would probably be value for our voice, as this advocacy work is quite busy, and just having someone to attend and respond to timely manners to issues that are going on can be challenging for us, as we are all working full-time as NPs. One last point, and then I'll open it up for more conversation. The majority of our finances would come from our SANP conference every year, would be our greatest fundraising, and that's what how we pay for that part-time position, as well as fund some of our advocacy work that funded a new website for us last year. But as we try to grow and do more work, we do feel like we are being hindered financially. Thanks, everybody.
And can I just want to respond to that a little bit gently and point out that especially in the beginning, it was felt like very much a catch-22, and this is something that the association needs to be aware of. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it usually only gets done by those few people that are interested. So you start getting tired and you start spinning. And then you get more tired, and then you get more work that needs to be done, and then you get more tired, and it just is a real spin. And so it is something that the association needs to really think about as they move forward. Governance is phenomenally important, but who's going to do the work? I see Joanne is also joined us, and Erica. I believe probably it was Joanne that came in next, and so I assume you've got the question next, Joanne.
Oh, thank you very much, Maureen, and thank you for being. I think it's amazing that you were the first president of SANP, and you get to be the first person leading a virtual revolving conversation at SRNA. It's amazing.
I kind of saw the irony.
So that's great. Yeah. You're going to work out all the glitches for the rest of us to come this week. So Jenna, I really did want to jump into the conversation because I think my thoughts and my dream on this, I think, is that you provided a good segue to it about the challenges around a small membership. And so hopefully we can get some conversation going around this. But first of all, I think that I'd like to thank SRNA for giving us this space to have these conversations. And I think there's a lot more conversations that have to take place. And the biggest conversation is about what this new association is going to be. And I'll tell you my dream, and I think we'll probably have some people joining into the conversation. And that is that we have an opportunity now to look at the trends happening across the country and look at building an inclusive nursing professional organization, not registered nursing, but an organization that is going to focus on bringing all of the regulated nurses together in one association with one unified voice. And I know there is people that are going, absolutely not, how could we do that? I can hear organizations and members saying, well, how is my voice going to be heard? We're a smaller group. And I think that this is really where we need to start, is there an appetite to grow an organization that includes nurse practitioners, LPNs, registered psychiatric nurses, and registered nurses? And if there is an appetite for that, then our governance model will reflect how we want to come together. And I would dare to propose that that is not a proportional model, that this model is based on we, in working in good faith together, say even the smallest among us has the same voice at the table. Because for NPs and registered psychiatric nurses, they might look at this organization and say, well, my voice will be lost because we're such a small group. If you use the NNPBC model, the Nurse and Nurse Practitioners of a BC model, they did 2 for each designation around the table. So equal voice. Doesn't matter if there is 10 nurse practitioners that join this organization, you still have your 2 people, and that's how you grow your membership. So I throw that out there for discussion. I think that starting at that is there's always going to be risk. There's going to be risk whether we go it alone, and there's going to be risk whether we do it as an inclusive group. But yeah, Maureen's nodding. There will be risk. But I think that in good faith, if a gesture of good faith to say, we will be open to everyone. And I think it feeds well into Jenna Lee's comments around, we're struggling with membership. I think we would struggle with membership. And so I think these are discussions that we have to have before there can be any talk of a governance model, is who are we welcoming in, and can we grow this together? So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Joanna. Totally appreciate that. Erica, would you like to go next?
Sure. I actually want to build on a different nuance that Joanne's actually brought up around the creation of the association, which is Warren had shared that there are currently changes at CNA that are coming forward around bylaws and model. Sue Smith brought up from Nova Scotia the fact of discussion of looking at an Eastern regional association. So I think that I think that we need to be more mindful of the fact that do we not need to be aware of what CNA is doing before becoming too hard and fast and adopting a governance structure or proposal before we know what CNA is doing, unless the proposal actually is going to become an independent model that is independent of CNA and moving away from CNA. I think it would have been very beneficial to have also understood or had a voice from CNA in a discussion and understanding what it is that CNA is actually looking at. Because I think that also has a direct impact on our feasibility, effectiveness, and ability to move forward. So it's more of a question and a comment and a consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica, on that. I have to say, CNA has been a good national organization for all of us for decades that we've managed to tap into. And I have to agree that was something that I went through my mind as well last week, listening to some of the conversation was, they've been out there before. maybe they can help lead us as we move forward as well. Moni, I believe you're next.
So I wanted to just share a little bit of my experience that I was on the board of nonprofit nursing association for 13 years. I had various positions, and that was the National Association of Neonatal Nurses and Nurse Practitioners in the US. And in the early years, the organization almost came to bankruptcy. Well, they actually did, because it was volunteer NPs trying to keep it going, and everyone is busy, and the money from the annual conference kept it going, but they didn't have good oversight of the finances, and the person who was the president almost bankrupted the organization. Then what happened is they were able to get association management company out of Chicago to take over and become the company that would run the association. It takes a lot of money. NAN is international, it's huge. We have built the membership up from almost, I think it was down to 300 or 400 members, back up to in the thousands. But I know that the operating budget of that nonprofit association is about $5 million a year. And so it takes money to run these, even though we say we're nonprofit and we want membership dues, it takes a lot of money to run. Unless you have a dedicated executive director, it's very difficult, because generally talked about value for membership. If you aren't producing value for membership, you can't keep the membership. The other thing is that I love Joanne's idea of making it all inclusive to all nursing. That might help you get it going, but then there becomes a lot of turf wars. Just even in NAN, between staff nurses and NPs, and trying to create an annual conference that had something to offer for everyone is very challenging, takes a lot of work. But if you can do that, it would be a better way to build your membership. Also, I would just like to say that it is very difficult to keep things ongoing because of the work involved when you're a volunteer association. And I don't want to be discouraging, because every nurse, I believe every nurse should belong to a professional and association. It was probably the key thing that has given me satisfaction in my neonatal career, helped me to grow, helped me to learn, the peer support, the networking, the benefits are just endless if you can get it going. So I hope that we can get one going, but I think we also have to be cognizant that nurses have started to join their specialty organizations because practices are so diverse. And so you're going to be competing with a lot of specialty nursing organizations that are going as well.
At one point in time in the development of the Saskatchewan Association of Nurse Practitioners, we did look at kind of committees, or, you know, we use the word committee, but it could be whatever word you wanted to use. You know, you know, let's say you would have a group that at the time we were looking at ways to partner with another organization that was part of SRNA called the Nurse Practitioners Association of Saskatchewan, NPOS, and they were they were part of the regulatory body, Saskatchewan Association of Nurse, I'm sorry, SRNA. And so they had different goals, different whatever, and unfortunately we couldn't make it work. But I do wonder if, you know, having a structure like what you were talking about, Joanne, where, you know, there is a board at the top that has the whatever equal representation, but then also having you know, offshoot boards that or groups, you know, that you know, nurse practitioners could be a part of that to bring their ideas together, you know, the LPNs, the psych nurses, whatever. And so that there's a supporting structure for the board members that are actually sitting around the table with all the other groups. And then, you know, maybe there would be some room there for, you know, like if the nurse practitioner group wanted to have a conference, they could have a conference. Or if the LPN group wanted to have a conference, they could have a conference, or something, you know. I mean, I'm just brainstorming, just some ideas that are out there, but those are the kinds of things. We did a lot of brainstorming and we tried our best to come up with things, and yet we still only have 40 to 50 members that have joined in. So the one thing that we always tried to figure out was a way to really strongly encourage, kind of force people to join, you know, and things like offering, like if it could be the association that offers the registration insurance, like, so in other words, from CNPS, then registered nurses or whoever would have to join the association. It wouldn't be an option. You know, just like it's not an option to be a part of your regulatory body in Saskatchewan. You have to be a part of that regulatory body. You know, so those are the kinds of things we toyed with, but we couldn't make it happen. So anyway, Frankie just joined us. Hi, Frankie.
Hey, Maureen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I just thought I would chime in as I also would concur with Joanne that an association that encompasses the family of nursing is probably a very prudent direction to take, especially if you can have representation from the entire group of individuals at the board table. I think that there are more issues that we share in terms of commonality that we could address as a group of nurses than there are differences. And those differences, I think, could be dealt with in mechanisms that have been identified already in terms of, like, you know, sort of like a, you know, a committee for NP work or a committee for RPN work, that type of thing. So I do believe that this is a very pivotal moment in terms of association work here in Saskatchewan. And I just want us to really be very mindful and be very proactive and think upstream as we're moving into this work. And we need to look at our new practitioners. We need to look at those individuals who are coming into our profession, regardless of stream designation, and really highlight to those individuals why advocacy work, association work is so important. And I think that if we can do that, if we can really demonstrate to them the value that association work gives to not only the profession, but to the people of Saskatchewan and their communities, then I think we're going to, really make a difference in terms of demonstrating to healthcare leaders, including government, the importance of nurses in the delivery of healthcare and optimizing the nursing role in the delivery of healthcare. So I just wanted to make that comment, and exciting times ahead. I'm very happy to see this moving forward.
Totally. Thank you, Frankie. And we have another person joining our four people in the middle of the floor, Bev Pulaski. Hi, Bev. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Maureen?
I'm great.
Good. I just wanted to say that I'm not in disagreement with anything that has been said, but just a caution. As the executive director of the RPNAS, we have, as a board, not yet made the decision to separate. There's discussion. We're doing a lot of background work. We're certainly smaller than SRNA. I don't have to tell those of you involved in the decision that it took a lot of time, research, resources, both human, financial, and voluntary. So as you're talking about one association for all designations of regulated nurses, you need to understand that we would have to go down the same road that you're going down, because currently we're a single mandate dual role association similar to SRNA. So just not that it's not possible, but just be cautious of including people in conversations, because you are the largest. You're talking about fear of not having a voice, and yet it already sounds like you've made a decision for people that have that mandate that haven't yet separated. Just a caution, but again, not that I disagree with the principles.
Thank you for that, Bev. And you're right. It is sometimes about the language. Joanne, I'll get there. And you're right. I think the idea is to keep open invitation to everyone. But Joanne, you comment, you respond. Thank you.
Bev, thank you so much for getting into the conversation, because this is exactly what, in my mind, is one of the very first steps, is finding like-minded individuals to go and have these conversations with the various groups. Same with the LPNs. So we have to, and I think that's the beauty of this forum this week, is you're going to see who the champions are, and there may be champions that come out that are completely against what I presented. And again, it's not my idea. It's the idea, and I think that previously Erica talked about, what is CNA doing? We absolutely need to know that, because CNA is changing their membership model. They are open at this point to psychiatric nurses and licensed practical nurses. But we need, and I fully appreciate and respect that our PNAS is the advocacy voice for psychiatric nurses. And so it's a discussion. Again, it's finding the people to make the space to have, and I'm not going to use the word difficult. They are not difficult conversations. They're critical, tender, and sometimes delicate conversations around this. So Bev, thank you so much for bringing that up.
Any other comments or thoughts at this point in time to include in the discussion?
So Maureen, it's Cheryl. Just a couple of comments in the Q&A with respect to, has there been any consideration, or does anyone have any thoughts about the role for members of the public or public representatives within the association?
Thank you for that comment from whoever put it forward. Yes, I mean, no, I should say, as far as I know, there hasn't been any discussion at this point in time. But that's all part of this organization and this discussion. I do think that the members of the public are an important component of an association. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe CNA has some public membership on their board as well. We are here to provide a service to the public as nurses, and so I would think that would be something we would consider. But it's it's a conversation that still has to be had. But thank you for bringing that up. Any other question or comment, Cheryl, that's there?
There is one. This is from Deborah Bathgate. If you were to start SANP again, what would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I haven't thought about that one at all. I probably might have get more people involved right from the get-go. It was a small group, which did allow us to be a little more nimble. But in retrospect, probably having larger conversations. We really, I mean, as Jenna Lee pointed out, we celebrated our 10-year, and so we didn't have as many opportunities to have conversations. Like Zoom was not a plural or a verb, I should say, at that point in time. So we had a little difficulty reaching out. Finding a better way to entice membership, that really became a barrier very quickly, was the membership and what we could pay for and what we couldn't pay for. Those are my main things. Does Debbie have any comments that she'd like to make about that? Hearing none.
So perhaps while she decides whether or not she would like to join the conversation, I do have a couple other ones in here. Janelle Shadatag, is it possible to have one association with two arms, so to speak? So you would belong to SRNA, and it would be the advocacy arm and then the regulatory arm.
Does anybody from SRNA have a thought on that? I don't know the legalities behind that. I'm thinking, I mean, at this point in time, SRNA does perform the advocacy work as well, or, so anybody from SRNA want to comment on that?
Hi, Maureen, it's Leah, a council member for Region 5 on SRNA Council. And just to speak to the questions, particularly about having an association with two arms, the SRNA is focused on regulation, and Council made that unanimous decision that we'll concentrate on that for the public interest. And ensuring that the public is first and foremost, and then creation of an association could focus on that advocacy arm. And then the conversations have been really good in regards to what does that governance structure look like? How do we ensure sustainability of an association? And I think with all of the great leaders and all of the people who have spoken today, it is going to be possible. And nurses know the importance of advocacy, and we need to make sure that that's within that association side.
Thank you for that, Leah. Yeah, somebody in the chat I noticed has put in, consider sponsorship might be another source of funding. For example, SRNA obtained sponsorship for the webinars. and that nurses are highly respected, and therefore might have some potential organization that would assist financially. That is a possibility. There may even be, startup grants that could be accessed. Hard to know at this point in time. That would maybe something else that could be looked at, is some sort of grant application or such thing. Another thought.
So actually that's a good segue, Maureen, into one of the other questions that we have in the Q&A. Does the SRNA have the ability to fund some of these discussions?
That's a good question. Again, I would like to hand that over to SRNA person, because I'm certainly not in a position to answer what the finances are of SRNA. Here we are. There's Cindy.
Hello.
Hi, Cindy.
Sorry, it took me a minute to raise my hand and get, so thanks for that was an excellent question. And I think I would just like to say that this is just the beginning of these conversations, and there's a lot more that has to occur. So it's been excellent. And in terms of that specific question, that is what further discussion needs to take place. For those of you that listen to Manitoba's experience, we have those lessons to help guide us and how they did it. So that's an opportunity, or what works for Saskatchewan. So absolutely, once this grassroots association movement begins, we'll start meeting and discussing, and agreements will have to be made and business plans will have to be developed. So absolutely, we'll have those discussions moving forward. So no answers right now, but just more discussion, more.
Right. I do want to stress, this is really wonderful that SRNA is willing to help with the development of this association. And that provides just such a great stepping stone and success of this organization, because when you're trying to do it around your kitchen table, it's tough. It's really tough, and you've still got to make supper for your kids, so totally, Saskatchewan is so fortunate to be able to have that base that we can jump from, so to speak. So I do want to say that.
And it's very important to council that with this move, that there was a soft landing for the association, and that we'll work together and help support that. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm being given the nod that it's 12:56 now, and so we do need to bring today's revolving conversation to a close. I want to thank everyone for their great questions and their robust discussion. And I'll take this opportunity to hand the microphone back over to Moni and Leah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for leading this conversation. And I think it was really good to share that grassroots development. And like you had said, it was sort of nice to have the first president of SANP and then to lead this discussion for an association within the province. So thank you very much.
So tomorrow we'll host our second revolving conversation on the funding model of a new association. So we encourage you to tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. to take part in the conversation again. And a reminder that the recorded version of this session will be available for 30 days to rewatch at your leisure. We invite you to email any additional questions or comments to conference2020@srna.org, and join our Voices in Action Facebook group to continue the conversation as well. So thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you back tomorrow.